Hey man, how's it going?
Welcome to the pod. Dude, I need you to have the intro music like on your phone or something. I have actually come to associate the podcast when I hear it on Spotify with the little intro jingle.
True.
Bum, bum,
I've never
bum,
even thought
bum,
about doing much with the
bum.
this live stream, but there are ways you can make that happen. I should actually look into it and not be lazy.
It's so iconic. Yeah, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. It's a placid Sunday in Berkeley. Last night, anecdotally, so that we found out that there's a name for this called the Berkeley boom.
Hmm.
And in this specific part of Berkeley, and every once in a while they can hear it in Alameda and in other places, there's a rumbling that comes from the sky that is it shakes the windows sometimes. And I mean, it sounds like the apocalypse. Like
Wait, what is it?
it sounds like China finally got us, dude. It just sounds like the drone swarm is descending upon San Francisco. Nobody knows what it is. Every time it happens, you go on Nextdoor and people are like, "What was it? We don't know what it is. It was so loud. It was so intense. There's no way that it could be this or that." I think they're testing something on us, man. I think they're testing something out here.
That's
Uh,
crazy, dude. That's wild.
yeah,
I've
yeah.
never heard of this.
So if you know if some insane new technology comes out of the Bay Area, it was probably tested on me.
Okay.
I'm probably being guinea pigged right now for whatever the fuck.
Well, we've got
I
good
know.
access then to someone on the ground when,
That's right.
when the
That's
story
right.
comes out.
Reporting here. Yeah. How are you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty good. I was gonna start with a pedestrian gripe today, which is that like I have this issue where nowadays this is like a cultural advancement. I just want to go back in time on and just like ditch as a thing. You go into a coffee shop these days and you ask for an iced coffee, and like every time they give you a cold brew,
Mm.
and it's like I didn't ask for a cold brew, and cold brew has like 50 times the caffeine as just like a regular iced coffee, and like it's fine. And sometimes maybe I need that or whatever, but like,
I love it.
dude, I get so hopped up, and I'm not gonna like not drink it, right? Like it tastes good, and like it's all, but I just get so hopped up, and oh man, I need to start just remembering. This is partly on me. I just need to start remembering to ask for like iced americanos or something like that. Like you
Mm.
can't go wrong with that. And like I don't know, like how do you feel about the cold brew? It is to me so insanely overrated, and people think that they're like fancy to do it or whatever, and they could charge you more for it and shit. But like, dude, it's like an inferior product on a number of levels.
Cold brew hits like dabs or like hash or something like that to me. You
Oh
know what I
yeah.
mean? Where I'm like, whoa. Not on any regular day do I want to get that fucking gacked out. I mean, it's approaching Coke levels of of
Yeah,
of
exactly.
focus activation, dude.
So
It's
I'm this far down into my cold brew today, guys. So uh,
weaponized. It's
it
weaponized.
reminds me of. Do you remember like back in the day when there was so there was like Coca-Cola, and then at certain joints they would have Jolt. This
Oh
is
yeah.
like it's like the Jolt versus you wanted a Coke, but they give you a Jolt, which you never even asked for or whatever. And then as a kid, as a teenager, you can't sleep for the rest of the night because you had a fucking Jolt. So yeah,
No, I
I don't
stay
know.
away
Like
from stuff. I stay
I'm
away.
gonna start a petition.
Uh,
Get rid of the fucking cold brews, guys.
I like a nice medium strength pour over for me. That's my
Oh, so good.
weapon
So
of
good.
choice every morning. Medium to high strength. The girlfriend made me an absolute an absolute soup this morning. Like just a it was like a cup of espresso. It was so strong.
Nice.
Bless her heart. Bless her. So I did get almost cold brew jacked up, but I've come down since then. I'm
Okay, this is good. I mean, I could talk about this all day. Coffee talk with Pete and Devin, but that's maybe another
Yeah,
show.
you're like a millennial Larry David. You're like the cold brew. What I wanted, I just wanted iced coffee, but they gave me cold brew.
Yeah, it is a Larry David sketch, isn't it? So, okay, to talk about more apropos to our themed podcast here, I do want to talk about this AI 2027 phenomenon. And so I don't even know exactly where to start in with this, but maybe just I'll do a very quick intro to what this is, because I bring it up every now and then in conversation, and people tend to not know what AI 2027 is. Like, talk about a generic name. But so there was this guy who left OpenAI a couple of years ago. It was Daniel Cocotolo, and he left because he didn't think that they were like properly taking seriously all of the safety concerns associated with their project to ultimately build like an AI superintelligence. And so since he left OpenAI, he's been working on this project that has now come out as AI-2027.com. And he worked with like Scott Alexander and a couple of other people who are like very intelligent in the space. And it very carefully and very coherently maps out all the different paths that we could go down in the next couple of years with AI, under the assumption that all of these companies are working to actually develop AGI, and one of them will. Like, that's their basic assumption, that like one of these companies will be successful in doing this. And it kind of like maps out all of the different paths that could potentially happen. And it's very granular and it's very thoughtful. So it's worth taking seriously, just because nobody here like involved with this project is like overly ideological. Like, they are actually like talking about what is actually potentially possible in this field, that people who are technologists in the space, they all are kind of like on board with this being a real thing. They're just like actually talking about it and mapping it out in like a game theory style of this happens, then this happens, and then choose your own adventure as these possibilities branch out. But yeah, there's just a lot of doomsday scenario situations here. And so yeah, this is what I want to talk about here, is like the doomsday scenarios, how real we think this is, and all tangential topics. Like, there's a ton to talk about here, but maybe just let me ask, like, how does it sit with you, just like, hearing about it and reading about it a little bit?
I can't believe that you just like no trigger warning exposed me to the darkness that was that hour of of spoken word. I mean, that is some heavy shit, man. Uh he Look, I think honestly, on vibe check for me, the guy that was being interviewed, he just had this very sci-fi kind of affect to him, where he was like, and then this is gonna happen, and then this is gonna happen, and then I can make this happen, and then and then and then this could happen, and it was like I could see all that stuff happening. And it seems possible. Nothing's ever moved that fast before. If something moves that fast, it really will destabilize a lot of human life, one would
Mhm.
imagine. I just Almost nothing revolutionizes a population that quickly, but we might be at that part of the curve where it's starting to be a little frightening, where the next thing is happening. And like the part that
Yeah.
really struck me, where I was like, puts you on game a little bit, to where somebody who's around AI models all the time, how they're thinking about these programs, these models, these personalities. He talked a lot about lying, and like the
Mhm.
problem of lying. And he, when asked, he was like, do you think they're conscious? He kind of hedged out of it. He was like, well, that's more of a problem for philosophers. I was like, but you're over here using words like lying that are very loaded, and
Mhm.
with the concept of consciousness. And that the fact that we're already at a point where like a top researcher is thinking about an algorithmic model, and thinking, we don't really know how to determine its motives, and so we really don't know why it's lying, or if it's lying with malicious intent, or if it's harboring a whole extra set of motives. I thought it was pretty. I think if you take his entire shtick at its word and on its premise, it's pretty fucking terrifying.
Yeah, I think that the thing that they really key in on, and probably make a lot of people pay attention to that haven't paid attention to it enough at this point necessarily, is the moment where I guess it's like right here. I'm not sure if my mouse is showing up, but like the first little dot here on this chart is superhuman coder. And this is the point where uh, coding becomes automated so that it can like self-improve at that point. And also this is the point where there are these various agents that act on behalf of us. And so, this has actually been a doomsday scenario for a while. Maybe I'll spell it out like very briefly. This idea that, so right now, for example, we could have an AI agent that books a plane ticket for you, right?
Right.
Or maybe books a full vacation for you. Just like you say, like book me a vacation to Hawaii, and then it just like does it. In order to do that, it needs to have access to certain accounts, like your bank account, your credit card number. It needs to like be able to log in with your password to all these various like booking sites, etc. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even get like a tour guide in Hawaii. But it needs access to all of these things. In order for it to carry out its goals, it will ask for access. And if we want it to actually do this, we will give it access. This is in the context of vacation, but you can imagine this for like government operations or like big businesses running important processes. They will just start to give agents more and more access. And pretty soon, these agents will just be smart enough to know that, like, in order to do this task, I need access to all these things. It won't even ask, it will just do it because it will be able to. And so, pretty soon, after we've just like opened up doors to all of these agents acting on our behalf, they'll just like open up every door and then it can make any movement. It can do anything. And then at that point, it has more control than anyone even quite comprehends. And it can kind of start to, at that point, do potentially very malicious things that we don't even necessarily have control of. And when we try to stop it, it has blocked us from having access ourselves, which it could also very easily do as soon as there's like autonomous agents effectively. Doomsday scenarios ensue like in mass at that point. How we just like lose control of everything. Like imagine you just can't log into any of your shit, but like this thing can, and it blocks you from accessing anything. And
Yeah.
this is just like one of those scenarios, and this plays out in a million different ways, right? But like that to me makes sense as a thing that probably will at some level just start to happen over the next couple of years as we have these agents doing tasks for us.
It seems like there's going to be this interstitial period where
Mhm.
like there is because a lot of the his language and a lot of the stuff that probably you've been absorbing that I've been absorbing is talking about training and how are they being trained. We're training these models for this, training these models for that, and they're looking at this curve saying like, well, eventually the model trains itself and becomes whatever it is that it has motives to become. But then there's this interstitial period where it is like really pretty dangerous, because you can imagine that if you in what world is the United States government not training AI models to try to figure out any multitude of things about an adversary or about the strategy of something or another? I mean, that's that we have whole wings of the government that are dedicated to that kind of like tradecraft, like spycraft, prediction, subterfuge, subversion, and like probably, yeah, I mean, I would imagine that kind of weaponized version of it is happening now. I hope that the way that the world tends towards developing seems like wealth disparity, but like in exchange kind of like a placid a placid middle ground. We have like such a peaceful society right now. You hope that that spreads and that that is like part of the ethos that contains and controls AI, that we legislate with it, that maybe a major event happens and we have to confront a set of facts, but that we're able to come together and collectively, decide our way through this stuff. But it does seem like every time people are talking about it at the top, that have worked for the place or have run the place or are really tapped into what's happening, they're all pretty freaked out that something bad's going to happen.
Yeah, another interesting scenario is that sometimes I've heard interviews of this Daniel Cocatolo guy, And he's been asked kind of point blank, like, what's the probability that you think that like the technology just won't allow this to happen for whatever reason? It just can't happen. I think that he gives us like a 5% chance that within a decade we don't achieve this AGI superintelligence, just
Mm-hmm.
because there's some technological reason why computers, just whatever reason, just can't do it. That's
Yeah.
also a fascinating and equally kind of sort of doomsday scenario, because we're left with this extraordinarily powerful technology that maybe we've hit like a the brink of it with,
Yeah.
and then like we're still going to be moving forward in weird ways, and we'll be left with this like powerful but not super powerful technology. Maybe
Yeah.
that's a good thing, but that also to me is equally scary, that we've kind of like topped out. Because what if it tops out just at the point where it can't help us solve climate change, it can't help us cure disease, or maybe
Right.
it can, but like not at a level that's like substantially better than we were going to do anyway without it. Just maybe we're delayed 10 years in solving cancer, or you know what I mean? Like, what if we just like top out on, and this is like the top out of human intelligence, how we
Yeah.
can, you know, and there is never going to be, we're not going to birth a new life form on this planet
Right.
ever. Like, we're
Right.
it. We topped out as intelligent life coming out of the planet Earth. No one ever talks about that as like a scenario that's unfortunate. Everyone probably looks at that as something that's good, but like that's kind of like we're dug into a scenario where, you know, status quo is something that is the ideal, maybe, or the
Yeah.
end. I
Yeah.
don't know, which is equally kind of like unsettling if you kind of think about it for a sec.
The corporate, I have such like a bizarre faith in the corporatocracy and like the hulking bureaucracy of like modern life to just kind of like be a bulkhead against, you know, any kind of like extreme progress. It feels to me like, yeah, maybe all of these doomsday things could happen, or maybe it is just like it has been for the last like couple of generations, where it just gets kind of mildly more dystopian every 10 years. You know, like
Yeah, we
some,
have plenty of technology to destroy everything, right? Like, this
yeah,
is actually, maybe
or
I didn't like at all spell this out in my last statement there, but maybe very quickly I'll spell this out. We have so many technologies that could destroy the world, and we're getting more and more of them, like biotech,
right.
obviously nuclear weapons, and like I'm sure AI is now one of these. Like, the hope from sci-fi writers, and
Mhm.
even the AI 2027 report spells this out as the good scenario. It's not all doomsday. There is like the utopia scenario. The
Right.
utopia scenario is that this AI God thing we're creating safeguards us, right, from any of the doomsday scenarios, because
Yeah.
it is built in, it is aligned with our desires to such an extent that humanity does not desire to end itself. And so it will be on the team of not letting us ever destroy ourselves, and having that powerful of a thing dedicated to making sure that life on Earth perpetuates. Dude, that's a great thing. Like, that is something we should want and not be scared of.
You know what's definitely
And
gonna
yeah,
happen
it's scary if we don't get that.
one of the world religions 100% is going to say that it's like heresy. You know what I mean? It'll be like this uniformly positive experience, and then one of the religions is going to be like, yeah, none of our people can do this. We're not going to take part in this like beautiful advancement.
Oh, there will, I agree. Like, there's gonna be a lot, actually. I think that there will be a lot of
Yeah.
yeah, I totally think that.
But I think,
Um
I mean, the most beautiful future for me is the one where all of the things that I imagine would be so helpful to us, like augmented reality contact lenses, like serum blood monitors, you know, shit. Like I was just thinking, as a musician and having to go through all of the processes of communicating with all of these people and arranging all of these things and doing all of these procedural things with videography. uh, if I literally could just speak tasks into something that was like Siri, but actually could grip every part of what I'm saying, my productivity would increase like 100-fold. Just being able to walk around and be like, yeah, take all that stuff off of there, put it there, you know, tell this guy to do this and this, you know, order the best version of this and this for me. You know what I mean? Like it would take so much off my plate, and we got to be close to that. But then I think about people in the 80s that thought that the year 2000 would look like still like 100 years from now what it'll look like, you know. I mean, we always think it's going to go fast.
Well, you're talking about AI as a tool to make to assist you in your current tasks, but what if it makes it so that, and this is the scenario that's spelled out here, and that a lot of people are talking about, jobs just go away. There's
Yeah,
no need to ever make another song ever again. There's no
right.
need to ever have any job ever, because like a
Yeah,
couple of people will just say, I mean, there will be so much just economic, uh, you know, you know, well, my mind is just blanking. Uh,
he eliminates it so well where he's like it'll just be the same thing that's happening now where society keeps getting richer but people keep getting poorer. And I was like, oh, that is the every 10 years it's more mildly dystopian thing, where it'll be like, yeah, a bunch of people that are not really trying to surf the wave of culture are gonna get bucked, man. And then a lot of people who even are gonna get bucked.
this is going to be, this is like, I've heard everybody talk about this as a scenario that will happen over the next couple of years, is if people do like, there are mass layoffs and there's not immediate, like there's not an immediate safety net for them, where like they just, their same income or more starts kicking in for them like automatically, there will just be mass protests and mass riots, and then societies could start to crumble, especially the ones that aren't nice to the citizens.
Sure.
And this is where I get nervous about the idea, because there are so many, like so many things in life, Devin. This does become like a political problem, which is why we always do talk about politics on this podcast.
Of
Is
course.
that there will be a point where it will be relevant that Donald Trump is the president when all of this shit is starting to kick in. He will be a relevant player in this at some level, if not like multiple levels of this, right? And
That's
he's not the guy that I would want. Like he has zero humanitarian instincts,
well,
and
and
that worries me, I
he
think.
fucked the pandemic, man. Like, regardless of whether you think he's a winner or a loser or a good guy or a bad guy, like, oh man, the reason why I would never believe in him as a leader was because during like one of the scariest things in many generations, man, like, uh, he was gone. He wasn't even there. And I'm like, damn, this is the guy. I pray that no insane world events happen on this guy's watch again, but you know that it's going to. You fucking know it. There's some
Hmm.
kind of Greek, there's some kind of Greek comic, tragic comedy about this whole Donald Trump situation, man.
Yeah, it's like weirdly, bizarrely appropriate that he would be the president right when an AI god is birthed, and he's the one who
Truly,
has a say in how the AI god gets to like assist the people. It's
truly
could not have been written better if there were a writer of this whole, you know, timeline that we're on. It just couldn't be any better.
truly.
I want to pause on one little thing though, because you and I both make art. I'm mostly primarily like novelist and screenwriter, and you primarily make music. Although we do a lot of things at any given day. Like we're working on like creative shit. So Derek Thompson, who was the guy who co-wrote the book Abundance with Ezra Klein, he has a podcast called Plain English that I never dipped my toe into until this week, and I listened to one episode where he was talking about kind of like an AI doomsday scenario thing.
Hmm.
And I think it was in the context of we spend too much time on screens, and what does that mean for like society and our culture, et cetera. Towards the end of his podcast, he was talking about how we might look back, like if AI, like AGI kicks in the way that like these people are saying it will,
Hmm.
we might look back on the last 50 years as the golden age of human creative productivity.
I
And
know.
then we just don't do human creative productivity anymore. That was just like an era
Yeah.
that was time stamped and it's over,
Right.
because sure, we can still make music. Sure, we can still dabble with like guitars and we for fun write novels or whatever, but like it's just over, man. Like it's done. Just like poetry basically is kind of like done, and like opera is kind of done. Um, we might be there, and we might just like live with that, because if that becomes the norm and we just like adapt to that, 100 years from now, we will look back on this time as like, oh, that was cute. They all used to make their own art. Yeah.
Oh, I think it's gonna be like that kind of in the blink of an eye. I think that
Yes.
I'm so hyper aware right now of the fact that like all of these legacy celebrities, they're really like the door is closing for any type of leverage of fame or notoriety, like that stuff. It's like the door is closing, and that whole kind of segment of the way that we interpret reality, honestly, is starting to fade into the distance and be replaced by all kinds of exciting and new things, man. Yeah, absolutely.
I have a pivot here. I set this up as a talking point, as a pivot. You ready for this?
Yeah. Oh, please. Yeah. Give me the.
Okay. So I wrote this essay this week called "What Comes After Dopamine Culture." Because yeah, I think we've talked about this before. I've talked about this with Noam Miljovsky when I've interviewed him.
Mhm.
But there is this phenomenon called, we now live in dopamine culture, right? And especially this guy Ted Goya wrote this article, "How to Break Free from Dopamine Culture," and he's like a big account and a big name, and this idea is kind of like spread forth from this essay that he wrote.
Mhm.
And the idea is that, like, just as the name sounds, there was like slow culture where you'd read books, listen to full albums,
Yeah.
etc. And then it started to be like, oh, you'd just like listen to tracks, and then you would read uh uh shorter clips of things. And now like dopamine culture is just simply, we're scrolling, we're like listening to TikToks, not even full songs anymore, let alone albums, like etc. And we're no longer like,
Yeah.
it's not playing sports, it's like gambling on sports. Like it's so far
Yeah.
like removed from like the actual thing.
You're mashing
That's
the button.
dopamine culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like dopamine culture is bad. Like everyone agrees with this, just because like I don't think there's anyone who's like, I love dopamine culture. Like it leaves you feeling empty, right? It's not a great thing. So I wrote this essay about what comes after this. And let me kind of give you my pitch, and I want to get your response to this. I want to see how this hits you.
Yeah.
So dopamine culture was fully the product of technology. So in this essay, I spell out like, if we're going to talk about what comes after dopamine culture, we have to talk about technology.
Mm.
And that means taking seriously the idea of all the tech advancements that we're now like looking ahead to.
Mhm.
So, playing that forward and saying that like we do create some level of AGI, et cetera, or whatever, I think that we might, and this is my argument, finally open up the very, very tippy top of Maslow's hierarchy of peak experience, where we might actually start seeking true peak experiences, because that's what we're all just kind of like hinting at, like everywhere we go in life. We're always trying to kind of sort of like, this is why we have sports teams. This is why we have pro sports teams to watch them. We're trying to like vicariously have peak experiences. What if we just like actually prioritize that? And there are all these tools that now enable us to actually pursue that in a meaningful way, where we no longer have a 9 to 5 job. So if all this time, our hobbies, we no longer have this like desire to monetize them, because what's the point? We all like live on UBI anyway,
Yeah.
and AI can create all the shitty, or I mean, all the amazing art that I'm used to saying shitty AI art, all the amazing art that could dream of. So we don't need to monetize anything we create. We don't need to monetize pro sports teams anymore. We do it
Uh-huh.
just simply for that actual legit, very, very human experience of feeling beyond myself and connected to the universe that you get through a peak experience. And that could be what we, you know, finally ultimately strive for, and orient our entire lives around just that. Okay, so that's my pitch. I intentionally made it very optimistic. But well, yeah, what's your what's your thought?
I feel like that's such a beautiful working class utopian theorem. Because I feel like so many people in the working class would be absolutely thrilled to just like cast off the chains of money and like just do the things that they like to do. And then I think there's this whole subset of people in the world that really crave leverage over other people and money and kind of controlling like economies and controlling, forces at scale is part of what makes those people tick. And I very much think that if there is, some kind of infinite energy generation or some kind of, huge wave of abundance, the thing that we're going to fight is the thing that we're fighting now, which is that there's so many people at the top of everything whose it's in their best interest to bottleneck whatever's happening so they can get a nice tight stream that never stops. And it's like we get that with technology right now, we get that with pharmaceutical stuff, we get that with all kinds of different things right now. And I think that if we do experience some huge boon, I'll be waiting to figure out, and there is access to UBI, and there is access for, everybody that makes an amount of money that's meaningful, so like less than a couple $1,000,000, where money's still real and it still buys you things. But once you're in like 10, 20, 100, $1 billion, money is figurative at that point. It doesn't buy you luxury anymore. It's just a lever of power. And there's a whole fucking cohort of people that run around the world, trying to wrench on things with that big sack of cash. So I wonder how that plays out. I wonder how that shakes out. I wonder how the rich, attempt to control and contain the happiness of the proletariat, if we do have something that creates that much abundance.
It's interesting that you framed it in those terms, because I actually mentioned this in the article too, but like the vision that this comes from in part is Aaron Bastani's automated luxury communism. There's a world where Marxist framings of society start to become relevant when you do tap into ultimate abundance. We start having to talk about life in terms of communism, and like we're so used to having in the West like such an ick response to anything that's like communism. But yeah, like what if what if that is kind of like the door out for us, and that we have so much abundance that the way to pivot society is we will reframe this. Like I actually mentioned this. So like the futurist Zoltan Istvan, who is currently running for governor in California, and I'm actually part of his campaign, full disclosure, he has referred to this idea of fully automated luxury communism. He's kind of like reframed it as automated abundance economy, a term I had a little bit of a say in actually crafting that.
That's a good little, I like that. That's a pithy little, yeah.
Yeah, isn't that good? So this is I think going to be the new term that we're kind of like get away from the idea of communism, but it's effectively the same concept.
Abundance economy.
Isn't that good? I helped coin that, so I will take a little bit of credit.
Yes, it's very literary in its affect. I love it.
So yeah, I think that might be, because here's like the caveat to all this is that we will still, assuming we're still like fully human or whatever, we're still going to seek status. So we may just not have the ability to coherently do it through money, but we will find ways to seek status in this new world. And I mean, if we're talking about, we live in a world where we're drilling into like peak experience culture rather than dopamine culture, we'll seek status through like being able to achieve peak experiences or something like this. I mean, who knows? This is just like my fantasy world here, but
I love, well, it's like you took me there, and the world that I imagined immediately was like all of these people, because obviously like the easy grab is like, oh well, this guy's really into rock climbing or something, and like, he gets UBI and now he gets to go all over the world and climb rocks. But then you reach a little higher up in the tree, you know what I mean? And you see the person whose hobby is dominating other people. You know what I mean? Who's kind of like whole like entrenchment in reality is like controlling stuff. You know what I mean? And like those people are not going to just take their UBI and go, Oh man, I actually really love skateboarding. I never realized like those people are gonna try to
Devin,
figure
you know what's
out how
hilarious?
to
Oh
steal
man.
other people's UBI. And you know what I mean? It's like there's just always gonna be, I think, people who, yeah, who have craven, depraved proclivities, man.
You know what's so funny? Like, you hit the nail on the head of the ultra sensitive topic here, which is that in any utopian scenario, no one has a good idea of what to do about like psychopaths and dark triad types. You know what I mean? Like people who they get their rush out of causing harm to others or manipulating others. What do you do with those people? Like, do we have to do some sort of new you know, the modern
or
equivalent of the lobotomy to like
or
make it so that
or
society
even
doesn't get destroyed by them?
even less severe than that, just traumatized people. Like traumatized people weaving webs around each other. Like that
Mhm.
is like that's such a primary source of destruction, social destruction in society, is when like people who have both been traumatized weave a tangled web around each other, you know. And it's not like having UBI is helpful, take some stress off, but you know, ain't gonna stop the cycles of life from spinning round, I think. But who knows, you know? I mean, the way that these people are talking about it is, to me, just feels divorced from reality, in the way that there's always people that are kind of like, it's gonna be tomorrow, we're gonna run out of this, or we're gonna, like, we have to think about this now. It kind of never is tomorrow. And their whole
Mhm.
vision of how it like spirals out of control, and then all of a sudden it's an army of super intelligences that I'm like, this guy, like, you grew up on comic books or something, man. Like, maybe it does work that way, maybe I'm just a rube. But it never has. Nothing has ever done anything like that before. And if it does, it will be genuinely shocking.
There are so many things that could be shocking in that respect in the next 10 years. And this is why it's so weird to be alive, because I don't think that it's ever been
So cool.
possible in the human in the here's one. Like at CERN, they just created gold out of lead. So like alchemy actually happened like this week,
Dude,
right? And
wow.
so we are living in actual weird utopian futures like right now with things like that happen. Also, we're living at a time where we have to actually take seriously the idea that we could crack aging and start to live, I don't know, an extra 50, 100 years. And that is such an insane game changer, like fundamentally a game changer, right? Then there's AI. Like all of that is happening like even without AI.
Yeah.
And then there's like energy abundance. What if we do just like get nuclear fusion to work? Okay, that's another one of these scenarios where like energy's free and abundant. That opens up all kinds of like we're
That'll
at this
change
weird
everything.
point in history where any given one of these would just fundamentally shift our actual daily lives, like, right? Like it's weird. Like it's a very strange time to be alive.
It's like, I've thought this for so long, man, and I've said it on this podcast so many times, but there's all kinds of like interpersonal strife that will never go away, but geopolitical strife, in my humble esteem, is entirely energy related, like, period. Because there is no resource not available to someone with infinite energy to do it. It's just that certain things that would be necessary to transform a desert into an oasis are too energy intensive. Just can't happen because of energy constraints. And man, the world would change overnight if energy became cheaper or free or easier to
Imagine the
get.
Gulf Coast if tomorrow we woke up and we just didn't need oil anymore.
Dude,
Imagine.
it would be crazy, but then it would be so crazy also to watch all of those people scramble for
Mhm.
reigns of power. And you know, it's like it's dangerous to take people's toys away, man. Like when people become powerful and have their fingers into all kinds of different edges of society and controlling these broad swaths of human experience, it's like they get addicted to that,
Oh, I meant that as a kind of doomsday scenario, like
right?
because if that does happen, which it will, like they're already starting to plan for it happening by pivoting their economies. Man, they got to do that ASAP, because it would be a doomsday scenario if all these countries that are so used to being extraordinarily wealthy are overnight extraordinarily poor. That's where, like, yeah, doomsday scenarios happen. Like, it's not good. Mass
Yeah.
unrest of a level that's like, yeah,
I
it's not
mean,
good.
I'm just hoping that it does what it's been doing, because it's been doing the same thing for a while, where it just incrementally gets a little scarier, a little more dystopian, but then a lot more people climb just one more rung up on the ladder. And
Mhm.
it's like, we're so fucking close to bringing people that are on the dirt rung of the ladder up onto the ladder. We haven't quite gotten there yet. People are still fighting about crazy shit because there's energy scarcity, because there's a lack of something in places. And like,
This
man,
is have you followed the Pakistan India conflict right
yeah,
now? I mean, like, Kashmir is partly so insanely important because if India ever got control of Kashmir, they could just flip off the water supply to Pakistan, because like the water flows from China to Kashmir to Pakistan, and if India controlled that, and if they had a reason to, they could just turn off the water. No more
right.
water, there's no more Pakistan. So it's civilizationally ending for them if India does ever control that. So yeah, I mean, there's so much at stake with exactly what you're saying, like energy and resources.
I can't remember who said it, but there was somebody who, and their theory was that there really isn't a lot of intelligent life in the universe, because at some level it always destroys itself. And it's like, you know, as we're approaching this taller part of the curve, I think you see our civilization stepping over these spike pits. You know, like, and as we get older, I think, and I've experienced more of these like precipice situations where everybody goes, whoa, you know, like one wrong move, and you see the house of cardsness of it all. And
I was just thinking about this today. There's got to be so much life out in the world. I actually didn't realize this so much until like today. Like, I was eating breakfast and like looking up,
yeah,
like, okay, what's a galaxy? Wait, how many galaxies are there? And
yeah,
like, dude, okay, this blew my mind. You know, we live in the Milky Way galaxy. Um, guess how many solar systems there are in the Milky Way galaxy?
trillions.
Uh, I want to knock if it's wrong, so I'm Googling it. The estimate range is tens of billions to perhaps 100 billion. Okay,
Damn.
so that's just our little, Milky Way galaxy. Guess how many galaxies there are?
200 billion.
Okay, this is where it gets crazy. Up to 2 trillion.
Damn.
The low end of
Crazy.
galaxies is 200 billion. That's the low
That's
estimate. The high is 2 trillion. And this is what is observable from Earth. Earth as a center of all the shit.
I want so
Observable is 2
bad.
trillion. So like, think about that. That's what's observable. That's like, that means that there's more. We just can't observe it. So infinite galaxies, like,
I,
possibly, like that, like 2 trillion is effectively infinite already, but like even that, like that's like, and this is like the one universe, not to mention like what if there are multiverses, like, dude, there's so much life out there, it's insane. There has to be when we're talking about numbers like that.
I want to so bad. Like, my real prognostication for the next 50 years is like, I really hope we just kind of gently step over these weird obstacles to not totally imploding and destroying ourselves, and get to the
I know,
point
me too, Devin,
where
I know.
please and get
Yes.
to the point where we get some kind of deeper insight into how to peer into the vastness of space and actually see something, because it is part of, I will be so disappointed if in 35 years we're still looking at like Hubble type, telescopic images, and we don't figure out someone doesn't come say hi, you know
Mhm.
come on, man, say hi.
Yeah.
We see you. We see you lurking around all over the place. You got to just drop in, say hi. You know, we won't freak out. We'll freak out.
I feel
They
like
know.
every morning at breakfast, everyone should do what I did just inadvertently, randomly this morning, and peek into the numbers of like, what is a galaxy? What's a solar
Yeah.
system? And then like,
Yeah.
oh, how many of these are there? And then like orient yourself. Like this is like the 2-minute meditation we should all do every day. Because again, like going back to India and Pakistan, it's so bummed me out this week, this story. It's like, do you know what it is? Like, yeah, sure, resources, et cetera, yada, yada, energy, et cetera. It's like Hindus versus Muslims. That's why the lines were drawn where they were. That's why, like, when that line was drawn, there were hundreds of thousands of people, or at least tens of thousands of people slaughtered overnight on both sides because of some shitty, like, made up fictitious religious bullshit. Dude, meditate on the galaxies, guys. You'll like that those religious like fairy tales you tell yourself that are so important. It goes away very quickly. Like I promise you.
Yeah. Well, which,
Made up
brings
lines on your silly little planet because of like the religion that your parents told you through. God, it's depressing.
Which brings me around to my perennial point when it comes to talking about aliens, which is why I think they keep visiting us in the first place, which is that we have this insane preoccupation with baked bread products.
Yep. I
And
know this theory. I love it.
I swear to God, they come here for the rock and roll and the pastries, man. They're preserving us. They're like very carefully shepherding us from, like they're like cutting off the Moscow like Trump call right at just the right
Yeah.
moment so that they can preserve like our psychotic fixation on sweets
Yeah.
and great tunes. Or like a heritage site where we've got to be like a universal heritage site, and they're the people that come here and they get caught, they're like the tourists that get caught like touching the like monument. Like they're from some backwater ass part of the universe. They're like, let's go to Earth, let's go see they we gotta go get the pastries.
I love this idea that humanity's contribution to the universe isn't like physics
Oh
or your
Lord,
religious insight or philosophy. It's like
no.
donuts.
Yes, yes, yes.
I love that theory. It's very good.
Thousands of years of royal families competing with one another to see who could make the best pastry. Surely no civilization would squander so many generations building so much pointless shit.
Same with the rock and roll. It took all tons of innovation and tons of yep. That's the best we got. Devin, I got to wrap it up there.
All right, brother.
Any last words or anything else that we missed before we wrap it up?
Oh, I don't know, man. I think I don't know. Honestly, I was going to say something hopeful, but God damn it, that podcast really got to me, man. I was like, probably AI is going to, and I'm like, and then it just like kind of like, I started weighing me down all of the knowledge that I was just bludgeoned with by this very intelligent young man. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I just hope everything's all right.
Yeah, you know what's so funny, Devin, you say that? This will be my last note, I guess. I was interviewed recently for a podcast about AI and like what to expect with it, based on my book, The Singularity Survival Guide. Check it out. And like to prep for this interview, I just listened to all the doomsdayers, like Eliezer Yudkowsky, and then this like AI 2027 guy. I listened to like Jeffrey Hinton, like a long list of these people over like days, the course of days, and I couldn't have any conversation with anyone at all without my mind immediately going to like, wait, but like jobs are going to be gone in like 2 years. Wait, but like AI is going to kill all humans in the next 2 years. And like, even though that's not possible, maybe it's probable, maybe it's 1% chance. Like, why are we talking about this? Oh my God. And like, it stressed me out. I genuinely felt stressed out over thinking about this too much, which makes me think that maybe we should be thinking about it because it becomes so real. Like I looked at my daughter being like, what if this thing that we're creating and like we're enjoying, like ChatGPT, like it comes to like kill all of us, like it's gonna kill my daughter. Like, what are we talking about here? How are we like okay with this?
Yeah,
So
dude. That's
it
why.
puts you in a hell of a mindset if you really, really think about what people are saying, you know?
Well, Peter, that's why you've got to exercise your right to gun ownership. And you don't want a smart gun.
I'm sure that, yeah,
Don't get a fancy little liberal smart gun, man. Get yourself something old school so you can fight the machines when they
I'm
come.
sure when Terminator knocks on my door, my little pea shooter is gonna save my. I'm sure. That would make a good movie scene. All right, man. I gotta bounce. Good talks. Till next time.
Later, buddy.